Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope every one of you is doing well, and I hope that you're excited for today's video. So let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most important pieces of genealogical information, the United States Census, also known as the Federal Population Schedule. So, what is the census? Simply put, the census is a count of how many people live in the country. So what does the census mean for genealogists? It's much more than just an index of people in a population. It lists a lot of important information such as names, usually the age, the gender, who lives together in a household. There's different questions for different censuses, and there's a lot of information to go over in that. The variety of information given to us on the census through each year gives us a small insight into what the life of our ancestors were in each decennial year. The best part is that most census records are available online for free. However, not all of them are. There is a 72-year block on census records. So, for example, the census for 1950 will not be available until 2022. So, in the beginning, in 1790, up until 1870, U.S. Marshals and their assistants did all the tallying for the census of those years. After 1870, people became hired on by the government, and those people were called enumerators. And the enumerators lived in the districts that they were canvassing, and they would go door to door in their own communities to record the people who lived there. Beginning in 1850, however, the enumerators started using printed instructions. The University of Minnesota has made these instructions available online through an online catalog. The dates for the census vary year by year. Each page of the census lists a spot for the date that the page was filled out. This is good for us because it lets us know exactly what day of the year our family was visited by the enumerator. These dates are as followed here. One of the most underrated things about the census is that we get to see a snapshot of how our nation grew over time. We get to see states and cities grow and boundaries change and territory become new states. It's really fascinating. The Bureau of the Census has a special section of its website for historical maps so that you can see exactly how things have changed over time. Many large cities have collections of enumeration districts, which are the routes that the enumerator took when they cataloged everyone who lived there. These are likely available in your public libraries and universities. The National Archives also have a collection of maps both online and in microfilm. Many people find that they can't find any information from the 1890 census, and the reason for that is a horrible tragedy that happened on January 10th, 1921. The Commerce Building, which was where the records were kept, caught fire, and all of the 1890 census, for the most part, were destroyed either by fire or the water that was used to put out the fire. The remaining records that were waterlogged and left sitting for several years were thrown out too, because there was no recovering them. So the 1890 census tragedy is really heavy for genealogists. I didn't realize that at first, and I spent probably a month looking for the 1890 census before I found information about that they were no longer available. Like I had said before, the Commerce Building, which housed the records, caught fire. 25% of the 1890 records were burned and not able to be rescued. 50% of the remaining ones were then doused in water, and they soaked up all the water. They became blurry, and old paper, as you may know, starts to rot if wet. So those records were eventually destroyed in either 1934 or 1935. There's not really a consensus on that date. However, in the 1950s, there were some surviving records that were found, and they were taken to the National Archive. There's a very limited selection of remaining 1890 census records, but at least gives us an idea of what was on the pages to be questioned. It contained things like Union and Confederate soldiers, head of household, how long they'd been there, The major differences of each census can be broken down into 4 main eras. The 20th century census group is from 1900 until 1940, the most recently released census. These included, for the first time, overseas and military personnel. They also included a wealth of personalized information, such as immigration, naturalization, occupation, unemployment, and property ownership. The late 19th century set includes just 1880 and 1890. As I mentioned before, the tragedy of the fire that destroyed the 1890 census was devastating, and it put a lot of weight on the shoulders of the 1880 census, which is between it and the 1900 census is all we have to go on for that block of time, over 30 years of time. The 1880 census added the relationship to the head of the household to each person on the list. The head themselves, they are listed as self, and then everyone listed father, daughter, or mother, son, whatever the relation is. What was able to be salvaged of the 1890 census was located and stored in the archives, and this is everything that is left of that census. And only a few pages of each might even be existent. I know for the Hamilton County, Ohio one, there's 1 page with 4 names on it. Mid-19th century census includes everything from 1850 to 1870. These census included the names of every free inhabitant of the household. They also included age, sex, race, birthplace, occupation, education, births within the year, and marriages. The early census years are listed as 1790, the first census, up until 1840. These censuses were very basic and only included the name of the head of household, and then the number of people who live there, their race, gender, and the nearby families. As great as the census is, it is not without its faults. It is by no means a perfect resource. For example, there is no indication of who gave the information to the enumerator. If your ancestor was not home, it is likely that their neighbor gave the information. Also, a lot of the questions have pretty broad answers. That doesn't really fill in specific information that we're looking for. Because of the time differences between each census, some age and dates could be inconsistent. Different dialects, languages, and accents made recording names awfully hard sometimes. In my family, my name has been spelled wrong several times over the 100+ years of census recording. People might not have trusted a random government official coming to their home. This could cause problems in recording information if they were only giving the bare minimum answers. In this video, I did not touch on the slave schedule information. There's a reason for that. That information deserves its own video. And I want to make sure that when I make that video, it is done right and does justice for the people involved. I do not know when that video will come, but when it does, it'll be at a time where I'm confident that I can do it right. And so guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope that you found this information helpful, and I hope that it helps you in further research down the road. Thank you all for coming by. Have a great week.